It's Lexi, Sane Lefty. Welcome to my crusty world. Casey Chaos is dead. He was amazing. There's very few punk icons in the last 25 years that I think will ever match up to him for quite some time. You don't know who Casey Chaos was. He was the singer of Amen. Later on, he had a band called Scum, and he had a bunch of bands when he was younger before Amen. Amen were amazing, and they raised the bar, the standards and quality in punk rock like very few others. It was like sort of like the late 90s, early 2000s, and we had already had at first it was like the grunge, stuff in the early 90s. That was kind of like the first, punk that got real big, Nirvana and like Pearl Jam and like Mudhoney and Meat Puppets and Melvins and Sonic Youth and all that shit. And then we had like the California punk, which was, like more like Green Day, Offspring, Bad Religion, NoFX, Pennywise, and all the bands that were on Lookout Records and Epitaph Records and shit. And then it, kind of faded out, and like the next things in music fucking came along and whatever. But like, Warped Tour still around and shit. But like, they're kind of like, sometimes when things get mainstream, they seem to like, kind of get like watered down or, not as good. And it was like 2001 or 2000, I think it was 2001, 2000 or 2001. Somebody turned me on to Amen. They handed me a copy of the CD, and it was "We Have Come for Your Parents." And it fucking blew my mind. Amen did not sound like any of the punk bands that got popular before them. I mean, they didn't really get that popular, but they didn't sound like all the stuff that had been coming out. They were higher quality. They were heavier. A lot of it was faster. It was more technical and interesting. It was more unique. They didn't write all the songs in the same key. They didn't use all the same chords. The song structures weren't all the same. That a lot of times, Casey would write all the songs on the album, and he'd write every song. He'd write them all in different keys, in different tunings. Amen raised the fucking bar in punk rock. Like it was, different bands, in the history of punk changed things in different ways, whether it was adding ska or getting more hardcore or adding like samples and keyboards or something, or, making gypsy punk, and, there's like folk punk, and there's like 20 or 30 different fucking genres of punk, but like Amen fucking took the bar for, punk and hardcore punk, thrash punk, whatever, and fucking just raised that fucking bar. There's very few punk bands in the last 25, 30-ish years, to me, that match up to the quality of Amen and everything that Casey Chaos stood for and Casey Chaos was really about, which is sticking to your guns, not fucking around, not selling out, not doing whatever the new fucking trend is. They were never on the fucking emo or screamo bandwagon. They were one of the first bands ever to be described as metalcore, but they didn't sound like most of those bands, and they were much more raw and abrasive. I think the only thing, it's like they had their very distinct sounds, but it's unmatched by so many people, and most bands still haven't sounded like Amen. And there's very few bands that kind of match up to it. I think the closest thing was like, I guess, like some of the stuff by Converge, where it was super heavy, super abrasive. It was like a more metal influenced hardcore punk, and it was noisy and thrashy and super raw vocals and just more interesting. Uh, to me, like my top, they're in like my top three, like best, probably groundbreaking punk bands in the last like 30 years that meant anything, that changed anything. It's like Refused, Amen, and Leftover Crack. Like those three bands fucking have just wiped the floor with all the fucking bands before them. And they raised the bar for quality, for what was fucking coming out and what was being done in the world of hardcore and extreme punk and, real underground heavy punk. Casey Chaos was like fucking no other. I never got a chance to see him live, and I fucking wish I would have. I would have fucking done anything to fucking see him live, and I heard fucking stories about their live shows, and I've watched them. Casey Chaos was no other. He didn't fuck around. He didn't sell out. He didn't fit in. He didn't dress like, he didn't follow like a little punk rock trends or like, oh, I'm gonna dress like this now, or dress like this now, or change our style more like this to be fucking popular. He didn't fuck around. He just was like an encyclopedia of punk rock, and he lived up to his fucking name, Casey Chaos, until the day he fucking died. He started out as a professional skateboarder when he was a teenager, and he did a fuck ton of drugs apparently, and he developed some, I think it was a lung problem, where his lungs would shut down, and so Amen had a reputation of playing every show like it was their last. And if you've ever seen any live clips or video clips of them, it fucking is true. In one of my playlists, I have a playlist of my extreme punk mix, number one. I think Amen is in there. And in my extreme punk mixes, there's a bunch of Amen songs. And, the guy was always getting in trouble. Like, a couple years back, he like maybe 5 years ago or some shit, 8 years ago, he like crashed his car drunk into like 15 fucking parked cars. How do you crash a fucking car into 15 parked cars? You gotta be Casey Chaos. And the thing is, like, like I said, there was like Refuse, Leftover Crack. I feel like Converge and like Dillinger Escape Plan like raised the bar and like, like technical hardcore punk and like technical grind, it's like boop. And there's, some other bands like the Daughters and the Locust and stuff, and like the technical grind and hardcore stuff that really fucking broke new ground and pushed the limits and raised the bar in punk. But the thing is like, there's like these legendary punk rock people that are like dead, like have the reputation of being the most fucking evil fucking person, like the G.G. Allens. Like, I feel like people my age and younger, like, dude, like fucking Gigi was gone by the time we were like getting into punk in like the 90s, And he was with like the last Gigi Allen and the Murder Junkies album, Gigi Allen album was like fucking 93, 94, 95. He was dead by like 95. I think he died 95, 96. So like we weren't around, people my age and younger, people weren't ever able to see that shit or be around fucking, bands like that. And to me, Amen was like that. Casey Chaos and Amen were like the fucking G.G. Allen. Like, only a lot of the music I thought was much better. It was noisier, it was faster and heavier, it was more abrasive. They used a lot of tunings, they used a lot of feedback and pick scrapes. I played the music, for a lot of friends over the years, people that hadn't heard of him, and they're like, "Whoa, this is like fucking metal. This is metal, man." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's punk. Look at the lyrics. Look at the artwork. See their live shows and fucking see interviews with Casey Chaos. He was like no other. They were fucking punk as fuck." And to me, he was like the G.G. Allen of my generation, of my time, and he was a massive inspiration to me. And where everybody else was failing, he followed through. Everybody else is going soft and being more commercial. He stood up. He stood his ground. He said no to trendy shit. He went heavier. He went more evil. He went more mean. He was more fucked up. He was more crazy. And, he lived until he died. The band Scum was awesome too. That was his band he had kind of after Amen had stopped doing stuff. Scum was Casey Chaos, two of the guys from Emperor, one of the guys from Turbo Negro, I think, and some guy from some other metal band I didn't listen to as much or wasn't as aware of. Look up a song called Protest Life by them. And I will leave all the links below in the description of everything that I can find on YouTube that Casey Chaos did and was a part of, and some links to some articles if I can get them to cut and paste. And I think definitely there's going to be a void in punk rock now with him gone. And definitely a small void inside of me. He was very inspirational to me. Like, he took the best of all the punk stuff I had gotten into when I was a teenager, and he just turned it up several notches. Like, he didn't hold back. There's no sissy shit, no selling out, no wussy stuff. All their albums are amazing. I've listened to all of them over the years. I've owned multiple copies of some of his stuff. And I even had ordered a copy once of his band in the 80s when he was still living in Florida originally, like a late teenager. And they were called Disorderly Conduct. And the album was called Amen. And later on, he, started a band or changed the band to Amen. And a lot of the band members rotated over the years in Amen. I wish I would have gotten a chance to see him live. That was my last hope. I really was hoping that they would get the new album out. They had been working on a new album on and off for like the last 10 years or so. And I really wanted that last album to come out and to see him live before I went out. That's not going to happen now. So, rest in peace, man. Rain in hell. Rest in peace and rain in hell. There's a void in punk rock now. A small void in me. And if you never knew who they were, well, I'm telling you who they are. Just like I was always telling everybody who they were. And I'll leave the links in the description so you can check them out if you never knew who they were. But I knew about him almost the whole time. And I followed everything he did. And now I can't anymore. So miss you, Casey. A lot of us will miss you. You did what nobody else would do. You're awesome.